everyone, welcome to a special Firecast with special guest,
Hadi Osmani,
who is a
guy working on Chrome.
And today we're going to talk about progressively loading Firebase in your web apps.
Speaking of Firebase, why is my timeline on fire, David?
I wrote the code.
I see. So we're in timeline. I'm using Chrome Inspect to check out your app on a real device. And what I'm seeing is that there's a whole lot of JavaScript here
that
is necessary before you become interactive at all. And if we dive into the network panel and sort this by size, what I see is a firebase.js file that's 324 kilobytes.
Yeah, I specifically went out of my way to make sure that it served ungzipped.
So you're intentionally being slow.
Yes.
But also your app. Okay, I got it. All right, so let's see if we can fix this, because I think that you can do a little bit better. But before we do that, I want to talk about Pi. This is a Firebase Pi. I'd put a lot of effort into this just for you.
Thank you.
If I were to give you a hot pie, right? You got a hot pie, what would you do with it?
I'd probably just eat it.
You'd probably just eat it, and you get scalded, right? Now, imagine that a user goes out and they check your app, they see something loaded on screen and they try interacting with it. If you've got a whole bunch of JavaScript on there, in particular on a real device, that's gonna need to be, downloaded, parsed, executed, and so on before they can interact. And a lot of the time, if you've got like a really big bundle, they're not gonna be able to do that really quickly. They're gonna be waiting and waiting and waiting. They'll try to interact, nothing's gonna happen, and they'll be sad.
So like 324 kilobytes, is that
That
big?
seems big,
okay.
Right? That seems big. So there are a few key moments when it comes to loading performance these days. And it looks a little bit like this. Some of them you may have heard about before, like first paint, first meaningful paint, visually ready. So, it looks like the thing can be interacted with, maybe it can't. And time to interactive is that point where like the JavaScript on your page is mostly settled. You can start to interact with the UI and do something useful with the page. Now you might be wondering, well, how do I actually track that at all?
It's a great question.
Used to be a very manual process. We've recently been working on this tool called Lighthouse. Comes available as like a Chrome extension and a CLI. And Lighthouse is really good for just checking that your progressive web apps are sort of using best practices and also that you're following performance best practices too. If you generate a Lighthouse report against an app, it looks a little bit like this. So it's also got a section for page load performance. And the one thing that we want to keep an eye on is your time to interactive in there. Now, our goals with this are to be interactive on like a real device in about 5 seconds. That seems reasonable.
Under what network conditions?
3G, ideally. So, and if you happen to be using a service worker, because service workers are awesome, being interactive in about 2 seconds. So, a person has launched your app, they've already viewed it before, so hopefully you've got a good amount of it cached, and they're pretty instantly interactive. That's the goal. This is what it looks like if you're doing things right. This is the Polymer Shop app. It's interactive in under 2 seconds. So it would be kind of neat if we could get your app sort of in that.
I think I might have something for you then.
It's almost as if we scripted this out. Okay, so most people using Firebase today are probably dropping in this one file, firebase.js. They're referencing it from the CDN. And if they're doing that, it's probably, around 107 kilobytes gzipped. So not that 324 monstrosity.
Right, a little more sane.
You were throwing in. But the 107, it's a little bit more sane. And they're including it this way. They're initializing Firebase. But Firebase also has modular builds,
yes,
right?
Nice little broken apart pieces.
So just the pieces that you might actually need for your app. So you've got Firebase app, auth, database, storage. And what we found in our apps is like we're usually using app and database for some of the simpler stuff. And those pieces themselves are a little bit smaller. So I've got an app. I was using just, the Firebase NPM package. I like using, CommonJS for my stuff. And before I learned all this stuff from you, I had a really big vendor bundle. It was slightly bigger than I was expecting. And my dependency graph looked a little bit like this. I have like a lot of Firebase in there. I was using all the pieces at once. Probably not ideal. But then I followed your advice and I went for the modular builds, and I ended up with like a bundle that's like less than 50 kilobytes in size. So,
yeah.
So thank you, David East.
You did say thank you. I wrote it down.
You wrote it down?
Yeah, I took a screenshot.
You framed, oh, that's nice. Yeah. That's nice. And my bundle after that looked a lot smaller, so it looks a little bit like this in my dependency graph now, which is really nice. But we're going to look at how you do that with your app, right? So you did this for the app that you were working on before, and it looks like this. So what are you doing here?
So I'm going to include the script tag for Firebase, and this comes from a vendor folder, but it's pretty much if you were going to use it from the node modules. So it's totally uncompressed, the really big Firebase JS. And once it's done loading, which you can see is actually taking a good while, we had our 324 kilobytes, and it took 4.51 seconds. So like you're saying, it's kind of slow. So rather than do that, what I actually can do is we can get rid of it, and I'm going to include Firebase from the CDN. And so this is the whole kitchen sink. And the reason why I'm doing it from the CDN is because the CDN will automatically gzip it for you. And if you upload anything to Firebase hosting, it will also automatically gzip it for you. But if you're doing something on your own server, you want to make sure that the Firebase you're uploading is gzipped, because that right then and there will have a huge performance benefit.
That was a good pro tip.
Yeah, it was good. Now, load this in again. And you can see that Firebase JS loaded on 2.21 seconds. So you can see that this also is on regular 3G. But we can do better. So we will go back and we'll actually break it out to Firebase app, then Firebase database. And then you can see if we needed auth or storage or even our new messaging library, you could include those as well. But that's pretty much including the whole thing all over again, so I'm gonna get rid of those and only include the 2 that we need. And then now when we go back to the app, refresh the page, and you can see right here is that Firebase app loaded in just 500 milliseconds and Firebase database in 1.22 seconds, again on 3G. Which is a lot faster.
Nice. So again, you've got that nice under 50 kilobyte bundle for the 2 pieces that you actually need.
And so we can even get better, because you can see that we have a service worker. And what we can do is we actually can go in and register our Firebase app and our Firebase database into the cache. And then also, if we were using storage, or if we were using auth, we could include those in there as well. And then when we'd actually get to those pages, then we would actually have start caching them as well. So now when we go back into our app and we load up the app, we can see right here that on the first reload, it looks exactly the same, but then service worker has been installed, we refresh again, and then everything coming from the service worker, our load is in 112 milliseconds, even on regular 3G.
It's pretty nice, so it's pretty instantly loading up there.
Yeah, I think that gets within the 5 second mark.
Yeah, that does definitely get within the 5-second mark. So nice work, David.
Thank you.
All right, so what did we learn today? Use the Firebase modular builds. They're pretty awesome. Progressive loading is pretty neat. So if a user lands on a route in your page, only load what they need. So maybe Firebase app and Firebase database. If you're on, say, an image upload page, maybe you could lazy load in your Firebase storage part. Use the CDN because it gives you gzipping, or you can gzip on your own server. Service worker caching, totally worth the effort, especially if you want to get that nice instant loading feel, when a person visits your app for the second time. And Lighthouse, pretty baller too. So Chrome extension, CLI, check on your performance best practices and PWA best practices. It's pretty neat.
Well, that is awesome, and that's also all we have for today. So if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and also check out this guy's show called Totally Toolin' Tips over on the Chrome Developers channel.
Yeah, Matt Gaunt and I cover the bleeding edge of tooling over in the JavaScript world.
So yeah, make sure that you profile your own Firebase apps and see that you're doing those 5 tips and see how much JavaScript you're including, and could you benefit by gzipping or the modular builds or service worker. So 5 tip high five.
Just like we practiced.
Just like we practiced.